Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to my Journey of a Mother's Son podcast. And I'm joined today by a good friend of mine, Leah Amico, who's out in California, and I'm here in Pennsylvania. And we're using the technology of Zoom meeting to do my first ever Zoom podcast. So this is pretty cool. Leah, thanks for agreeing to join me. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about the current state that our world is in. First and foremost, and how we're all coping to get through that. And then talk a little bit about softball. You can't talk to Leah without talking about softball. She's a three-time Olympic Gold Medalist, and really an icon in the softball world. So many people that I've met since I've met Leah have told me how much they look up to her and how much of a role model she was for them as they were growing up and playing. So I think it's very cool to be able to do this and use technology. So Leah, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good talking with you. And, I just love that we just have similar foundations, similar passions, between sports and God, and especially softball. I love bigger than all of it is the relationships he brings out of it in so many different ways between coaches and teammates and then people that, we get to meet, just like you and I met through, Jenny Finch camp and just now the relationship and friendship that we have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, first of all, I think, we want to talk about the current state of affairs in the world with the coronavirus and COVID-19 and, being locked in our houses. I know for someone like you who was really kind of always on the go, going to one softball camp or another, broadcasting, this would be normally a really busy time of the year for you. So
yes.
How have you been able to, make that adjustment? And, what have you been leaning on the most?
Well, so first of all, I had to cancel one trip about a week after kind of things started. And for me, I feel like things kind of started right around the Wednesday that the NCAA, talked about canceling the March Madness and Final Four, and I think at first they were saying, okay, we're going to play with no fans. And then obviously the NBA happened right after that where, they put everything to a pause. And so I feel like those first couple of days were just like this, whoa, what is going on? And I think I sat for like 2 or 3 days on my phone on the TV, just watching what is happening because things were changing minute by minute. And for me personally, a week after that, I had a trip to New Jersey that was planned. And so I was to be flying out there speaking, doing a couple softball clinics with a high school and speaking at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes coaches breakfast. So that kind of quickly got canceled. Within that week, they kind of started, I think FCA shut everything down. I think most people were kind of following at schools by that Friday, which was when I would have been there.
Right.
We're closing. I know for us, that's the same day. My son, who's in 8th grade, they said campuses are closed now for now, and we're going to do remote learning. And so that was kind of the immediate. And then I actually didn't have anything until this weekend. I was supposed to be headed to Waco, Texas, to go speak at a sports banquet for high school athletes in the area. But also I was going to go and watch Baylor play against Oklahoma. Oklahoma was supposed to be in Baylor this weekend at Baylor. And so that got canceled. And then, you talk about the commentating. I don't do too much in the spring, but I was supposed to actually go to Liberty in the middle of this month and to do 6 games. So that got canceled once the season got canceled. I usually do regional or super regionals for for college softball with ESPN, as well as the World Series with Westwood One. So all of that got taken off the table, which was a big difference because
Right.
Besides the fact that all of us are at home now, it kind of was like, okay, what I do or what I was like looking forward to and preparing for, all of that was kind of taken aside. And so it kind of, I don't know though, I have had just this unbelievable peace in the midst of all this. And I do know that it comes from God. My faith in Jesus and the Word of God is everything to me. And I feel like when the storms get the worst or the wildest is when I feel like your foundation shows the most. And so I feel like people with no foundation, the Bible talks about being on sand, that a storm comes and things crash. But then there's talks about a house being built on the rock, which is on Jesus. And it says that it could withstand and withhold the raging storm. And I feel like, and I think even as Christians, I think some people might have a foundation that has some holes in it because they aren't solid on the word of God, or they're not following him, even though they are Christian. And so for me, it's really been something that's helped me to dig in and say, yep, keep that firm foundation.
Yeah. No, and I agree and can completely understand what you're saying, that, that peace that passes all understanding. And, I'm someone who in the past have really, dealt with anxiety and, getting very, worrisome and anxious about things. And throughout this whole, ordeal, both my wife and I, we are about as calm as can be, and as you know, we had big plans, which are kind of put on hold. We bought an RV and we're in the process of selling the house, and, all that's kind of on hold. And, you and I talked before about a lot of times, probably for me, the most difficult thing is really kind of, trusting God's timing sometimes, because I want to, make a decision and get out there and do it, and,
yes.
And, he and I have had disagreements on that that timing in the past, but he always wins and it always works out the best. And I think because of some of those past experiences, it's, helped us deal with this, so, I mean, we literally have an RV sitting out in the lawn, and, the sign is still in front of the house, but we've actually temporarily taken it off the market just because, no one's looking right now. But at the end of the day, we know it's going to work out. And whenever he drops the green flag and says, okay, now it's time to start this journey, and, off you go to wherever he sends us, we're just at, there's just such a calm, and I can't even explain it. I mean, it's so difficult to explain, and I'm sure some people who listen to this won't really get it, which is, I think, an even clearer message as to why you really do have to trust in him and understand that, he has a greater plan, and we don't understand why the world's going through this. I mean, I've said to many people, I think it's just maybe a time, that we need to kind of take a pause and reflect, and really, a lot of the things we took for granted in the past, I think it's time for us to really appreciate them. Like, again, family dinners. And I mean, for our family, it's just Sandy and I and the dog at this point, but still, I mean, having that quality time together.
Yeah.
And her and I have also joked, that maybe this was God's test to see if, the two of us could spend, 24/7 together. Because if we couldn't do it in a 3,000 plus square foot house, we sure weren't going to be able to do it in a 300 square foot RV, So
Yes.
I said, hey, sorry world, that the rest of you are going through this test, because God wanted to make sure we could survive each other. Because again, I mean, we've been together for 30 years, but, like you, I mean, I've been out of the house a lot, and, at the complex and doing stuff, and, working 80 some hours a week and all that sort of stuff. So, we've had a great relationship, but again, we really haven't been together 24/7 like we're about to embark on. So it is really weird. I can't even put it into words how much at peace both of us are with this situation. And when it comes together, it comes together. So, I think just trusting and having that faith is, so important.
Well, and I just think of the verse that Jesus himself said. He said, in my peace I leave with you. He says that in this world you will have trouble and trials and tribulations, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. And it's like, I think that for us, like, I feel the same. Like, I mean, I'm not a big worrier, but still, like, I'm like, this is an extra piece. Like you said, it surpasses our understanding. It's, I know that in my own tendencies, I might, just look to the what ifs and how am I going to do it? And like we just talked about, like, all my income is pretty much gone for the whole first half of the year. And so you're like, okay, but then I'm literally like, well, it might be hard, but guess what? God, you're going to be with me and you're going to get me through it. And so, okay, what do I need to learn? And you just walk me through this day by day. We'll figure this out because God is faithful and he provides for our needs. He promises to.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, for people that don't have that, I'm sure it's going to be tough for them to understand, what we're talking about. But, for them, I tell them, just seek it out because it's there for everybody, really.
Well, and I think that we need to open our Bibles and if people do, go to people who have that peace and ask them, where are they getting it from? And then secondly, open your Bibles. And third, just pray and ask God, even if you don't know him yet, God, I want to know you. Show me, where does this peace come from? How can I have this peace? And just because we don't want to feel hopeless. That's when things just get really bad. And that's when you will have the physical side adding to the mental side.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So let's talk a little bit, just shifting gears to the softball world. The NCAA season was canceled. The Olympics were postponed. Obviously you were, an amazing collegiate athlete and then Olympian as well. What were your initial feelings? Again, no longer being a player, but certainly understanding the work that goes into playing a season and going into the Olympics, the first time that softball's been back in the Olympics, since 2008, and now all of a sudden it's on hold. What were your initial reactions to that news?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's like two separate things when you talk about the collegiate game and then the Olympics. For the Olympic team, oh my goodness, like all I know is that when they very first said it, my heart was just saying, I really hope they just do a postponement. Right. It will be the saddest thing if they cancel the Olympic Games. And at one point there was talk of that. And if they said, that's fine, we'll just do it in 4 years. Well, guess what? Softball's not in the Olympics in 4 years, and it's already been out for 12 years. And so the idea is, this is finally, these girls have waited so long. Michelle Moultrie from Florida played at Florida, and she has been on the team for 10 years, and this is what she's been waiting for. And it makes me think back to the women who had played for so long. When I was first coming up, I was in college, so I was young. It was, I came at the right time, but Dot Richardson, 34 years old, she had waited and waited and waited and stuck it out for this opportunity, and we finally got to play in the Olympic Games. So it's almost like that for a lot of these athletes. They've been out of college, they've been training, they've been playing on different USA teams, and finally the Olympic Games were coming back. And so I think that was the very first. And so then when they said, when finally the USOC and the International Olympic Committee said, we're going to postpone it a year, like this peace came over me, because then it was like, okay, that's fine. Like another year. And it just means more training time. It means some of the players that were dealing with some struggles physically, they can get stronger. It means as a team, they can bond more. And so I felt like, okay, that was okay. Like, I think it was more in that waiting, like, is it going to be taken out? And so I think a lot of them are just having that fresh perspective. And believe me, even if it's one year, it just gives them that much more time. They had started their tour and they started to feel that grind that was happening. And we did tours before every Olympics as well. And it's hard. It's hard on your body. It's hard mentally. It's super busy. It's all training. It's fun, but it's hard and it's grueling. And so I feel like if anything, they kind of are going to get a reset button, and they're going to be able to almost approach when they start the tour next time with a little bit more perspective of what to be prepared for and what to expect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So then on the your reaction then to the collegiate side.
Well, the collegiate side I felt like was different because you had all the different years and they were in the middle heart of their season. And so I feel like at first, especially because, you hear about it, you hear March Madness. Well, they were at the very end. That's within a couple weeks. But then you're thinking, wait, this is still a couple months away and you're taking it away from everybody. Now, clearly we're understanding that was the wise choice to make at this point. That was the safe decision to make. But then it came down to, okay, those seniors really, not that it wasn't hard for everybody, but my heart immediately went to the seniors, to think that most of them are done. The majority of players are done. There is a very small pro league and there's opportunity to play internationally, and there is the USA softball, but that's such a tiny percentage of collegiate athletes. And so my heart was hurting for some seniors that I know personally, and just thinking, okay, I really, really hope they're going to give them an opportunity. And that ruling just came out that they said, not only are they going to allow seniors, another year to compete, they are going to allow all the players. Now, this is going to be school by school basis. And I think it's still going to be really hard because I think some schools are going to say, we don't have the money. And so you are going to probably have some people who are devastated, some people who are crushed, some people whose careers are taken from them. I think you're going to have another group who would love to, but maybe they have internships coming up or a job that they're graduating and that's what they're moving on to. And so even though they wouldn't maybe want to make that decision to not play again, they might have to for those purposes. Right. So I still think that those girls hopefully are going to be able to grieve in a way that kind of gets more big picture. But I think it's going to be really hard for some of those athletes. So with the NCAA ruling the way that they did, I feel like it gives more of a peace to a lot of these athletes who almost felt like the rug had been taken out from underneath them. And so I feel like it's going to be okay. It's going to take some time, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of healing because of that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So have any of those athletes, whether Olympic athletes or collegiate athletes, actually reached out to you personally for advice on how to deal with it?
I've talked to a couple teams just on Zoom, and I've been able to share with some different teams. And I know that some of them are feeling a little bit anxious with everything. And I think it's kind of the unknown, but I've reached out actually to a couple as well. And, kind of said, and one in particular, Alyssa, Palomino Cardoza, she is an All-American at Arizona, and she actually had already taken her redshirt year, and this was, her final season, and she, was on track to be an All-American again, hitting a lot of home runs, just having a great year. And she was somebody that my heart was like, oh my goodness, she did go to the actual USA tryout, but didn't make the team. And so I just checked in and said, how are you doing? She's actually Tony Mascarenas, who we do the Jenny Finch camps with. She's her niece. And she actually said, I'm okay. I know that God has a plan with all this. And so to me, I just think those that have, again, that foundation that we were talking about, even as a collegiate athlete, they have a different perspective on all of this.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know, I think one of the things that we can learn throughout this, what we're going through right now is really keeping things into perspective. And I know for, people like you and I, sports has been, such an integral part of our life. But I think also it's been an integral part of our life for the right reasons, because we allow the lessons that we learn from the game, to, translate into life lessons where, unfortunately the landscape of youth sports nowadays, not every program is like that. There's a lot of programs where it is win at all cost. It is, this is the most important thing that you're doing. It's training 24/7. It's, no balance whatsoever in their lives. And I think if anything, this has given us an opportunity to really sit back and put things in perspective and say, sports have been an incredibly important part of my life. But at the end of the day, it's not what defines us. There's more important things like family and like God and, just having that faith and understanding. So have you kind of felt the same way throughout this whole thing?
Yeah, well, I just immediately think that what do those people go to? I mean, this is everything, to a lot of people. And it's almost like, okay, now where are they turning? But I agree, people that have that foundation, or maybe even had it when they were younger, maybe it's something that when they were little they did, but they've never gone back to it. And everything has been driven by having to be better and having to have the name and having, and yes, those are good things. But by themselves, when that is all you live for, I think this is a chance for them to get a little perspective. Like you said, what if it's all taken from you? What if you get this sickness and you're going to die right now? What are your views heading into that? Because I think what's happening, and I think this happened also when the accident happened with Kobe Bryant, I think it shook a lot of people because it was this reminder that no matter how famous you are, how rich you are, how world known you are, that we're not in control of the day that we die. That
right.
Accidents happen all the time. And when it gets closer or when it gets bigger, which is the magnitude that happened with Kobe, it was almost like this shaking that happens, that there are things that come out of our control. You see these tornadoes coming through. It changes lives forever. It takes lives, the hurricanes in the past in New Orleans, or, you had Houston. And so I just think of these things that are these wake up calls almost. And for us, it immediately goes back to what is our foundation? Guess what? God says I'm his child. He says that my days are known on this earth. Everybody's are. We just don't know when the final day is coming. And so the idea is, are we prepared? And have I made sports my God, or have I made the God of the Bible my God? And I'm thankful that he's blessed me to be a part of sports. And I think those are two very different things.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, the other thing is that we've become so structured in a youth sports capacity, where kids can't just go out and play without having an adult coach there or being part of an organized practice or organized game or something like that. And I think that's something we've definitely lost. 'Cause I know, when I was growing up, for me to go in the backyard and, play baseball by myself, all I needed was a wall or a Johnny Bench pitchback or, a roof or something like that. And I could keep myself busy for hours upon hours. And I think nowadays, we've lost that a little bit, in the fact that we've become such a structured society when it comes to youth sports. And that's one of the things that, as our organization, my old organization, over the past couple of years had gotten more and more involved in the Latino community, and seeing how those kids didn't necessarily need a coach. I mean, after practice was done, they would still go up to the cage and hit some more, and they didn't need an adult to be there. And just the other day, I was walking Uke, and we came up over the hill here, and I, saw a boy in his yard climbing a tree, which I hadn't seen, couldn't tell you the last time I saw a kid climb a tree. And then as I'm walking down the hill, there was a girl playing soccer with herself, where she was kicking the ball up the hill and then running to go get it and trap it and kick it up the hill again. And again, I've, in the 20 years that we've lived in this house and I've walked that route, I've never seen those kids doing that. So I think, again, it's a chance for us to kind of reset and, understand that it's important for kids to have structure, but it's also important for kids to come up with their own thing and, have a little bit of an unstructured environment and, scratch their knees and learn.
And I think what you're saying is so true, but I think we've taken all their time. I think it's a combination just with school, even the expectations with that. And then you have, like you said, sports, like the amount of time training and practicing, like you said, as an organization, it's just literally just stripping, like so much family time has been lost, like you said, and then so much free time. And then sadly, and this is just the world we live in right now, but the free time a lot of times is spent on computers or phones, and that's kind of how it's spent now. But this situation is, like you said, it's almost like making me think just old school, like like what we used to do, because we didn't have access to these TVs, the way that we do now, all the different access and channels, or the phones or the computers and the video games. And we had some, but it just was not like it is now. And so I'm with you. I feel like it's a healthy thing for us. And it's just going to be interesting to see how, once everybody is able to get back to their schedule, back to their routine, obviously some changes are going to be coming. It's going to affect us in some way. We don't know exactly how yet, but I'm interested to see if those things are a little more protected. A little bit more. I mean, it's a battle though, because again, the demands on our time are more than they've ever been. And it's in every aspect, as parents, as coaches, as teachers, you know what I mean? It's just the demands are what's causing it a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely, without a doubt. So we're just about out of time, but one other thing I want to talk about before we go off here is just, I know for me, another thing that's been so important is really being able to kind of balance, my time and, being able to watch the news, but not watch it too much where it brings you down, because you can go down those rabbit holes because there's, so much, bad information out there.
Yes.
And same thing with social media, really trying to focus on, as you're scrolling down your page to, take in the positive components of social media. I mean, that's why, again, I always look forward to your posts on social media and, Jenny's posts and Tina's posts. And I have another friend out there in California, Homa, who always, are constantly posting, positive things. So, what are some of the things for you to kind of keep that balance?
Yeah, for me, I feel like we still have to choose it. Like, because even we were just saying, like, it's amazing, even being in quarantine or being in your house, like how much time can get wasted. It can be, just sitting in front of the TV, like you just said, or even on social media and just hours and hours, or even it's easy for me with my whole family, 3 boys, my husband and I all here in this home to still waste time and just be completely separate. So last night I had said, and a couple nights we've done this, but I said, we're going to start having a time where we're going to listen to a worship song. We're going to pray and we're going to just read a devotion. Then we're going to talk and you guys are going to tell us what you're feeling. And at first, oh gosh, they did not like this. They were like, no, but I think by the end, like we all saw the benefit of it. And it's almost like we have to fight for that. And I was reading the story of Zacchaeus and I did a little talk on the story of Zacchaeus in Luke 19 yesterday, but God was just speaking. There's this guy, he's short, he's a tax collector, he's rich, but he hears Jesus is coming into town and he has to see him. So he actually climbs up a tree so he can see him because the crowd, and Jesus sees him and says, come down, I want to spend time with you. And then he goes and they eat together. And then Zacchaeus changes his life. He just says, yeah, basically admitting he stole money and I'm going to pay back everybody fourfold. And so I shared that with them. But what God was speaking to my heart was that was somebody that didn't know Jesus. But even for those of us that know him, it's a battle. Like we have to fight. Am I willing to climb that tree? Am I willing to do the extra? So this morning, actually, and like you said, am I willing to listen to others who are going to point me in that direction? I watched Tina's interview and I absolutely loved it and was so encouraged by it. And just her saying that God started speaking to her in such a powerful way when she would daily get up early and she would spend time alone. And so I thought, you know what, like I do it throughout different parts of the day, but guess what? If I can start again, like if I'm willing to just take less sleep to do this, I'm going to be the one that's so much more full, that's so much more peaceful, so much more joyful, kind, loving, giving, like those are the things that are going to be the benefit. God's going to speak to me in new ways. And so this morning I set my alarm and I haven't set my alarm since I've been, on this quarantine.
Yeah,
and so it's good because I was like, no, I have a couple things. I got to speak to the Indiana University softball team this morning and share a little bit with them. And I thought I'm going to get up before that. And I've listened to a message already today, Bible devotion. And so for me, those, like, that's my commitment. And I have been, with this downtime though, I have been in my word more, and more than anything, what I've really been feeling led, and I wanted, and I'm thankful for your posts as well. And people that I feel like we're on the same page, just sending that encouragement, that hope, that peace that is there for others. And I've just really felt like this is a chance where more people are maybe willing to watch because they have a little more time. And it might be a post or a verse, like you said. And my heart is to encourage others to share with people right now, because there's a lot of people that don't have anything to share because they are worried, they are fearful, they are anxious, they're not sure what's going to happen. Their security has been ripped away. And I think we have the answer to say God wants to be your security, and he's a good foundation. He's someone that won't let you down. His promises are forever.
Yeah, no, it's very powerful, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know even now in quarantine, you are still very busy thanks to things like Zoom and everything else. And again, I cherish your friendship and the fact that God has had us cross paths. And I told you sometime you're going to see our RV roll into your driveway, and
Yes.
I don't know when that is, but it's in His hands at this point. Yeah, but I really do appreciate you taking the time. And again, for those out there listening, Leah, just give yourself a little bit of a self plug here. You got a website, you've written a book, which I think is a great book. It's very easy to read. It's broken down into literally a couple pages a day. Talk a little bit about how people can get your book and, your website and that sort of stuff.
Yes, and I'm thankful as well for our friendship and the way God connected us, for sure. My website is Leah20, Leah20.com. My book is on there. People can order it straight from there, or they can order it from Amazon, and it's called Softball Glory and God's Story, and it's a 31-day devotional for softball players, but I've heard other athletes have read it and they've been encouraged by it because it's just a lot of the principles that, we deal with in life lessons, but more than that, I tie it into spiritual lessons of ways that a topic like teamwork or being strong mentally or, surrendering everything or sacrifice, and how those things tie in not only to our sports life, but also what God says about it and how that can, just impact our lives in such a powerful way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Once again, Leah, I appreciate it. And for those of you listening, always be sure to check out other podcasts and my own blog at danclouser.com. Thanks again, Leah.
Thank you.